What's up, guys? I'm so excited to announce that we have partnered with Coaching for Literacy, and you can read more about them at coachingforliteracy.org or follow them on social media at Coaching for Literacy. Your subscription to Bluff City NIL is 100% tax deductible because of our partnership together. Thank you for supporting Memphis Tigers student athletes and helping promote the monumental cause of childhood literacy.
Memphis. Nothing but Memphis. Everywhere we go, it's Memphis.
Welcome to On the Bluff, a Bluff City Media audio podcast. Stepping up to the microphone are your hosts, Gabe Kuhn and Christian Fowler. Now, let's get to the show.
After a 2-week layoff, we're freaking back in studio, Gabe.
How about it?
How about it?
More upgrades each week.
Every time.
And I'll tell you what, I had a good trip, but it did not start all that promisingly. You know about the Southwest stuff?
Yeah.
I got Southwested, fellas.
Had some flight issues.
Oh, it was bad. It was bad. I woke up at 6:30 the morning. I was supposed to fly out about 8:30. And
Day after Christmas, right?
Yeah, and I immediately looked at my phone. Canceled. Obviously, I think they gave the 25,000 reward points or whatever.
Yeah.
But I got canceled, so I had to fly out 2 days later to San Diego than I was originally planned.
Oh, y'all didn't fly
and
out
then
till
get
the 28th?
Then get this. Flew with American Airlines, upcharged like a mug, by the way, because they knew.
They knew everybody was coming over.
And I always go back to the conversation, just because you can take advantage of someone, should you? But American Airlines took advantage of me hardcore, flew over to San Diego, and I was packing my bags. I was going to check a bag and then check my golf clubs. They lost my golf clubs, fellas.
Oh.
They lost my golf clubs. And I've gone through the submittal process. I've put in a claim and nothing. Just haven't heard from them. They're highway robbery, man.
That's what it sounds like. So you didn't even get to use your own clubs in San Diego. Had to rent clubs.
So Gabe,
I didn't even rent clubs. We didn't go.
Didn't even go.
We didn't
Okay.
go.
So Gabe, I need to know. Like, I had no clue you were a golfer.
That's a loose terminology.
Well,
Come on.
Golfer
Look
is
at
like,
him.
I golf.
Look at him. He
But
looks like a golfer.
like most guys, like, are you a golfer or do you golf? You golf.
Neither.
You suck at it, like.
Neither.
I'm not a
I
scratch
suck-
golfer by any stretch
I
of the imagination.
suck at it so bad that I don't go.
I do break 100 though. Break 100.
Could be worse.
It could be.
Yeah.
It could
Well,
be.
my trip went better.
Okay.
I think Gabe is a man
Oh,
of many talents
sorry.
that we don't know about. Like,
I'm
it's
a
just-
hooper.
You're a hooper and
Yeah.
you're a golfer.
Yeah.
That needs to be the next video. Me
You
and
know,
Gabe.
I run church league, guys.
Me and
I-
Gabe
I-
1v1.
yeah.
You think
Got a
I'd
church
beat?
league team.
Think I'd beat Gabe 1v1, Kenny?
You did
No
beat
chance.
Damian Ball.
No
Do
chance.
what?
You did beat Damian
Did
Ball
you?
that one
I
time.
did beat Damian Ball.
Is there a story there? Or
There's
is
a
it just-
video. I mean, in there, Kenny.
There is video proof evidence of you banging on DamianAll.
That's 100% true. He's not lying.
Okay.
That is archive footage. You could almost put that in here.
Like,
if
did you
wanted
get to the rack or did you?
Oh, I got to the rack, didn't I?
No, you.
See, you don't even remember. You didn't.
No.
Dude, this was like 4 years ago.
You wedded the dude.
I did.
You
You're
wedded
right.
him.
He's telling me I was barbecue chicken.
I
He's
don't
gonna-
know if I trust you guys fully. Like,
Bro!
was this like
Kenny,
one of those like
put it in
he
here.
sucks at ball? He sucks at ball, and I'm gonna be nice to him.
I mean,
Like-
Kenny is an unbiased bystander. So what do you think?
Um,
I mean, he wasn't going 100%. Come on.
Can I? I'm going to put some context into this.
Okay.
He was wearing slides.
That doesn't matter. He should still be way better than me.
Okay. Well,
But-
you wouldn't get me 1-on-1, dude. No chance.
Okay. Let's run it.
We could run it. We're gonna have to do a special on this.
Yeah, that's gonna have to be its own
Yeah.
own thing. But anyway, yeah, my vacation was
so down for
was
this.
nice.
Yeah. And
We drove, so we didn't have to worry about flights.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's great.
didn't have to worry about the flights. Yeah, had a great time. Spent New Year's on the beach. Caught a couple sharks.
Rock on. Did you do any? Did you have fun on New Year's Eve? Did you do any extracurricular drinking? Did you drink a little bit?
Extracurricular?
Say that
However
one more
you say extracurricular.
There you go.
Is there
No,
any
I don't-
extracurriculars on New Year's Eve?
I don't drink.
You don't? Not even a beer.
No,
Okay.
I haven't had.
I feel like I knew this about you.
Yeah, I haven't. I don't think I've
Christian
had
hasn't been a drinker for
forever.
ever.
But like, I don't think I've had a sip of alcohol in like 3 years. I just don't like it. Me and Kenny went to Vegas together, and neither one of us drank. Was
good for you, dude.
in hindsight extremely lame. Actually,
Did you
we,
gamble a little bit?
We did gamble.
$20.
Okay,
20
there we go.
bucks.
There we go.
$20.
We went
did
to-
have- I think we had a couple drink, like maybe a drink.
We went
or
to.
two.
We had a
What
couple
did
of
you-
drinks with Javante Holmes.
What drink?
Okay.
What drink did you introduce me to?
It was a
Grand Marnier.
Long
and
Island?
Grand Marnier
Grand
and
Marnier and
pineapple
pineapple.
juice.
That's what
Get
it
him
was.
one Long Island, he'll be feeling himself.
Dude.
man.
If I had a drink, like if I had a mixed drink right now, it'd probably be terrible.
Toast.
Yeah, bad. One drink and I'd be tapping out.
I hear you, man.
We did go to literally the first thing we did off the plane was we went to a dispensary.
Okay.
Oh, dude,
Rock
it's
on.
so wild. Like
It is wild.
this is totally off subject, but we land in Vegas. Me and Kenny get in Uber, and the Uber driver's like, "Where are you guys from?" And Kenny's like, "Tennessee." I'm like, "Mississippi." He goes, "Oh, so you've never seen a dispensary before?" And we were
Yeah.
like, "No." And he was like, "All right, let's go." So first thing off the plane, this dude just
You
takes
freaking potheads, you dope heads.
We did not buy anything.
You tried to see it.
Yeah, we just went in.
Okay.
and
So
an
like you
Apple
checked
store.
in, gave them your ID and
Yeah.
everything? Okay.
It was
That's
an
a-
Apple store.
yeah, it literally was an
An old Apple store?
Yeah. No,
no.
like it. That's
Wait.
the way it's
set up like an Apple store.
Oh, okay.
Like they literally have iPads.
Do you know what
with, like,
brand
weed
it
on them and
was?
stuff.
What dispensary was it? You don't remember?
I don't.
No
It
clue.
was years ago, but I'm telling you, you walk in there, they've got
They've got iPads.
iPads set up with, they have it set in sections. Like, do you want something that will hype you? Do you want
For
something
real?
that will
They're like,
sedate
Well,
you?
and I
Do
bet
you
you, I
want
bet
this?
you, if you asked the personnel behind the counter, they would give you like a 15-minute long explanation.
They
No,
do.
they do.
Exactly.
So you get basically like a weed tour guide when you walk into the store. Am I lying? Am I
Oh,
lying?
tour guide.
You're not lying.
It
in the
is a
slightest.
straight up weed tour guide. As soon as you walk in the door, they got the iPad, they check your ID, and then they're like, "Okay, what
This
are you
was
looking for?"
originally this was a cross hybrid
Yes.
between
They
Pineapple OG and
Yeah, they give
telling
you
you.
the whole rundown of where this weed came from and how it came about. It was nuts.
they first cross pollinated in 1973.
Yeah. It was culture shock immediately. We walked out like, what the heck is going on?
But no purchases.
No purchases.
Okay. Rock on.
We walked out and we're like, well, that's a good way to start. Our Uber driver made some purchases.
so wait, so the Uber driver just made you go on his weed run?
Yeah,
Basically,
yes.
that's what happened. Did he
Yes.
charge you extra for your?
No, we were like,
Okay.
oh, we don't want to pay
I
extra.
think-
He's like, have y'all ever been to a dispensary? Just trying to
I-
act like it's about you when it was
Yes.
completely
And
about him.
Totally about him.
I have a theory about it, though. I think that these Uber drivers, these taxi cab drivers from the airport, are actually paid by these dispensaries to bring the new people from the airport over, because at that point,
It's plausible.
Do they get commission?
do they get a commission off of the
They
clientele?
probably don't. Okay, think about it, guys. We're talking about potential potheads here. They're not getting commission. They're getting free weed.
Okay, that's their commission.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's got a dollar amount.
I mean, they had a bag with his name on it when he walked in. He just grabbed it.
Okay, that didn't happen. That did not happen.
But he basically took you on his errands, guys.
Yes.
Let's call it what it is.
For free. He took us for free. He didn't
Right.
charge us for the ride.
Okay.
Which is
We
why I
got to
think
see
he's on
something that
commission.
we'd never seen before.
And now you've seen it.
And now we've seen it.
Okay.
And now the first one's open in North Mississippi.
That is true. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Apparently that's going to be crazy. But anyway,
Yeah.
I guess on to topic because we haven't been on yet. Let's start with a little Memphis basketball while we were both gone. Memphis had a couple games. I don't know. Were you back for the ECU game, or were you still in?
I was
San
back
Diego?
for the ECU
Okay.
game. I
Gone
was
for the Tulane game.
Tulane game. I
Yeah.
was gone.
So last two games, Tulane loss. And I don't think we spend too much time on that because I feel like it's already been talked about a lot.
but I'll put it this way though. Not a good loss. It's going to
No.
age better by the day, though. I think Tulane's
Agreed.
going to have a decent conference schedule, and it turned in quad 3 to quad 2 already. You don't want to lose that game, but as long as you just sort of stay within yourself and handle the games you need to handle down the stretch, it's not going to be an unbelievable inhibitor. It may lose you a seed or two
Right.
by the time you get to the NCAA tournament, but I think the defensive woes were a freak out point, but I thought they got back to it against ECU.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Kenny and I talked about this last week, just about how good Tulane can actually be because they do have players. Are they an elite team? No, absolutely not. And, we clarified that pretty heavily. But they have a good chance to finish third in the conference.
Right, 100%. Because who else is going to Cincinnati, maybe.
It's like
Cincinnati, Tulane,
UCF.
Well,
And
I say UCF third, and then probably those guys after that.
think
UCF.
so?
I mean, UCF right now.
it's playing solid ball.
That's a net rank 36 team, guys.
Yeah.
And Ken Palm 37.
Yeah.
That turned into, which we were wondering going into the conference schedule, are they going to have any of those quad one opportunities? That turned into a quad one opportunity. So and they play them next.
Yep.
And we'll get to the ECU game in a second. They play them next. That right there on the road, if you go get that win, I almost feel like the conversations coming out of that game, you'll forget about Tulane.
Absolutely.
You'll forget about what happened there. And even against South Florida struggling a little bit, you'll forget about that because now you have another quad one win attached to your name.
Completely agree. So let's dig into this win over ECU a little bit, because this could have been nightmare scenario, right? Like this is going to be a quad 4 loss potentially. And it wasn't looking like Memphis was going to pick it up. And fortunately, I'm going to put a little conjecture in here and say that Penny probably lit a fire at halftime because this was a totally different team. They sleptwalked through the first half.
Right.
Offensively, defensively. I say defensively,
right.
they were solid. They were solid in the first half. I think they held them to 4 points.
Defensively, they sleptwalk for sure. Or offensively,
absolutely.
For sure.
And just the sloppiness that we saw overall. The turnover started pouring in midway through the first half, and they came out and fortunately took control of the game relatively early in the second half. Went on, I think it was a 22-0 run that they went on, something like that, to really grab control of the game and then never let it go. So fortunately, you dodged that bullet because then it's rough. Because if you start your conference schedule 1-2 with losses to ECU and Tulane, it's not a great look.
Oh, hell no. That would be awful.
Not at all.
I mean, that's disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, your net drops into the 80s if you do that, if you start your conference schedule like that. But I'll say this. ECU, first half, they sleptwalk offensively. I thought defensively, even in practice, you could. I feel like Penny tried to light a fire under these guys.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Because they were substantially better. The issue became in that first half, obviously ECU got up to that 33-25 sort of. They were up 33-25 at half. 21 of their 33 points were off three-pointers. They made 7 or like 6 in a row at one point. They started 0 for 5, finished 7 for 13. They were shooting lights out. And I guess some of them were open looks. And maybe as the third one drops, maybe get a hand in the guy's face a little quicker. But it's Javon Small, I believe, is their guard. He was knocking down impossible shots from the logo, 35-footers.
Yeah.
So I thought defensively the whole game was better. But offensively, it just goes to show if Kendrick Davis isn't hitting on all cylinders, man, this team is going to struggle. And you could talk about the three-point shooting all you want and, okay, who's going to do this? Who's going to show up? Maybe they'll find another guy on the wing who can put up a three-pointer and make it. It's not going to get that much better, guys.
No.
They were 2 for 13 again. They're not going to put up a lot, and they're not going to make a lot.
Begins and ends with Kendrick Davis.
Yes.
We've been saying this since day one of the basketball season. This offense goes as Kendrick Davis does. And we've seen his inefficient play strike multiple times. Regardless of all that, and we've mentioned this, he's still the best player on the team.
100%.
And we all know that. But when he's inefficient or has an off night, and he really looked rattled after he got hit in the head for obvious reasons. You get your lip busted open, that can take your head out of the game a little bit. Looked off before that anyway.
Right.
And when he struggles, it's hard to watch this team offensively because they just don't have that second. We've been talking about third, right?
Right.
All year. But even that second, extremely capable scorer. DeAndre is a good scorer, but he's more of an opportunistic scorer, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
So who else is creating offense? No one.
You think Damaria, you think Keontae Kennedy, but it hasn't quite come along. It hasn't surfaced the way you thought it would.
And it's still early with this
team,
right? We're just getting into conference play. Damaria just came back. He has
but each game that goes by, it's getting later and later into the season.
Absolutely.
And you want to, if you talk to any basketball coach, you want to have that figured out by conference play.
Absolutely.
You want to have all of the pecking order all situated. And I don't
And
know
we
if they're
thought
quite
they were
there
going to
yet.
have that.
I mean, they have the pecking order, 1-2
Right.
pecking order. But after
we
that,
thought they were going to have all this. We thought that third score was going to be obvious, and we thought a second shot creator was going to be obvious, whether it be Damaria or Keontae or Johnathan Lawson or whoever it may be. And it still hasn't come to fruition, which is, to me, cause for concern.
Yeah, and largely when it comes to when Kendrick is struggling, let's call it how it is, right? Offensively, I don't know if they do a whole lot of running anything. They don't just sort of put it in the hands of Kendrick Davis and DeAndre Williams, and they go make things happen. That's what it is. And when Kendrick has that game where he's off in the head, it gets stagnant. The ball sticks a little bit more.
Right.
But I thought the spark they needed, and we've seen it in the past. I remember the USF game in 2019 in particular. It sort of reminded me of that performance. It's Alex Lomax in games like that, right? In conference play, sort of knowing his role, he had 7 steals, 6 assists. I mean, he in that second half willed them back up in that game, and he didn't score a whole lot. He didn't do anything in that regard. But those dirty work plays he made were the reason I think that the Tigers were able to get a 10-point win, like truthfully in the end of the day.
Completely agree. Yeah, he played an incredible second half, was all over the floor defensively, finished on some of those steals with layups, and was able to capitalize on those opportunities. But it's like, how long can we sit here and wait for that to happen every single game? It's not going to. You're gonna have more of these Tulane losses if it continues to happen.
I mean, think about the example. I just brought up an example from 2019. Right. It doesn't happen every game that Alex Lomax is going to be locked in and he's going to come save you. But it feels like there's that one game a year where he does that, and that's the one. But you have to be offensively better than you were the other night if you're Kendrick Davis, and you have to be more locked in. And the issue that comes with him to a certain extent, I feel like he just gets out of his head. He misses a few shots, gets a little frustrated.
Maybe starts pressing a little bit.
Maybe presses a little bit. And the other night he got hit in the head, and that really bothered him. But he needs to stay within himself because that's the best ball he plays.
Absolutely.
And I like he brings intensity, and in big games, you look at Auburn, Alabama, he brings the intensity and he stays within his head and can go score. But there's some of those off nights where he gets a little too hyped up, and it's for the worse.
So let's talk about Damaria Franklin a little bit, because this, obviously a lot of people were excited about him coming back and what it meant for this team. And I would say he's been very solid defensively thus far, and offensively just hasn't been able to find a rhythm. And I'm curious as to how they inject him in and get him into a rhythm, because we knew with him coming in out of UIC that he's not a great shooter, right? He's not a spot-up shooter. He's a slasher. Like, he gets to the basket. And we just haven't seen many opportunities for him to do so. So how do you work Kendrick Davis as a primary driver for a guard and Damaria Franklin? How do you allow them to coexist and both get to the basket and both make plays and both draw fouls?
Isn't that the issue, though? Because at UIC, Damaria was largely a high-usage guy, tried to get off the dribble, picked his spots, and went for it. I don't know if he's had that opening yet. I don't know if he's been able to just sort of find that rhythm as the primary ball handler. I sort of wonder, and obviously you don't want to have Kendrick Davis off the floor for an extended period of time if you're Penny Hardaway and you're trying to get your lineups correct. But I sort of wonder if Damaria, as a secondary ball handler with Kendrick Davis off the floor, I wonder if that could be something that works out in his favor.
Yeah, I think there has to be a way to intertwine them and highlight both of them, right? Because the offense isn't just going to magically appear. And you can't rely on Kendrick Davis to have 30 every game. He's going to have off nights. Every basketball player's going to have off nights. And
his off night was still, 14 points?
Right. So we've seen him have some off nights in the offensive struggle because of it. So there has to be that second unit, right? There has to be that second guy that can come in when Kendrick's out of the game. And who else other than Damaria is it going to be that can score? Because we know what Alex brings, but he's not going to be a primary ball handler, and he's not going to go slash and drive and score 15, 16 points with Kendrick Davis on the bench. So I think they're still figuring out, unfortunately, because Damaria was out up until the Alabama game, and I think we're seeing some of that. How do we work this in, and how do we fit this in and allow them to coexist?
And that's sort of what I'm hearing from both of us is that Damaria needs to have the ball in his hands instead of being a secondary option when the ball's coming down the floor.
Yeah,
he needs to be with the one with the ball in his hands if he wants to go find his spots, pick his spots, and get going on the offensive end. He can't be a guy
that's standing on the wing.
Standing in the wing and just
waiting on the ball.
Sort of
it's not who he is.
A ball swing guy.
Yeah, that's what he's been.
That's what he's done. Yeah. And I think you could get him involved a lot more on the offensive end if you put the ball in his hands. Now, if it doesn't work, you pull the string on it quick. You decide to take him out and you say, okay, we don't need to do that. But I think there's a way for Penny Hardaway to get him involved as a secondary ball handler with the ball in his hands to go facilitate too.
Absolutely. And something Kenny and I were talking about the other day is Johnathan Lawson. And the usage for him has been very inconsistent. Like some games we see him for 10 to 15 minutes.
Don't you get it though, kind of like in a way?
Yeah, yes and no, because
you need a shooter.
They need a shooter, and he's played well when he's been in. Has he been perfect? No, but he's not a guy that has a ton of college experience. Mm-hmm. And you have to have that spark. Elijah McCadden has been solid, but offensively, not great. Keontae Kennedy has had good games, but obviously coming back from the injury, he struggled some offensively. So it's like it's got to come from somewhere. And Johnathan Lawson has shown that he can shoot the ball, that he has the length necessary that Penny Hardaway desires, and that he can be a spark for this team. So it's like, do more minutes come for him? Like something has to give.
Now let's talk about the negative of this, right? Defensively, he's not connected at all yet.
Yeah.
He's got to learn defensively more IQ because we know that's where it starts and finishes with Penny Hardaway and where you get playing time. The more you know on the defensive end, the more you go. So that's the issue that you run into. And also, sometimes when he's out there, he can be a little bit loose with the ball, and that's because he doesn't have enough experience. You need to get him experience, but I do agree. You need to find minutes for your, let's call it how it is, best three-point shooter on the team now, without question.
What was the game where, so Alabama game, they only hit 1 3. What was the game after the Alabama game when he came in and hit, I think, 3 threes in the first several minutes? What game was that, Kenny? Do you know?
Well, I remember against SLU, even going before that. I remember against SLU, he was the injection they needed offensively to even stick in that game, but they would have lost it by 15 points running away. He hit 3 threes in a row and got them back in that game.
It was A&M, right? Am I tripping, or was it A&M?
It was the A&M game. Yeah, it was the A&M
so the A&M game.
10 points, 3 for 3 from 3.
Right, and he came in and shot well early. So does it become a thing where if Penny Hardaway and the staff see offensive struggles early, that we go ahead and inject Johnathan Lawson into the lineup? Because he came in ECU against ECU for a few minutes, but I think it was later in the first half, early in the second half, and didn't get much run, and Memphis was already stuck in neutral and stuck in the mud. So is that something that we see? Do we see him injected earlier into the lineup when there are offensive struggles to spread the defense out a little bit more and to unclog the lane because they know that's the primary funnel for DeAndre and Kendrick Davis?
I think you're dead on. Like they need to inject him somehow and find a way to get him involved for offensive purposes.
Yeah.
They need that extra offense, and I get where Penny is coming from at the given moment with Johnathan about not necessarily trusting on the defensive end, but at some point when you get into a game against the game they're about to play against UCF and you need extra shooters, you need to space the floor better, that's a guy you need to put in. And also, I think there's an added plus, although he's not as connected on the defensive end. He's lengthy.
Yeah.
He can get into passing lanes and make some plays on that end.
And here's the thing about the discrepancy between Johnathan on offense and defense. Memphis has the talent defensively to make up for a deficiency. Mm-hmm. Correct? They have that. Offensively, they do not have the firepower to make up for the deficiency. Mm-hmm. So, in my mind, the positives that he adds on the offensive end of the floor are more than the possible negatives for him on the defensive end of the floor.
And especially against the normal conference opponent. Right. And I think you have to bring that into consideration.
Yeah.
In big games, he could, and we don't even know this yet because we haven't really seen it on a big scale in a big game, but in big games, I could see where it could be a problem to have defensively someone
if you have superstars on the other end of the floor.
But against Temple, against all these, why not?
Yeah.
And I think with him, a lot of what he needs to get better at will come with actually being on the floor, getting game experience. Not to practice all you want It's a different intensity.
Completely different.
So just getting him those minutes, that run, I think would be massive. By the end of the season, you could have him clicking.
Yeah. So let's discuss that UCF game a little bit, because for an early conference game, this is a pretty big one for Memphis. As you mentioned, UCF's kind of been climbing up in the rankings, Ken Palm and net rankings. Although they don't necessarily have star power on that team, they play really well.
Yep.
They're a well-coached team. They play well as a unit. They take Houston to the wire a couple games ago, have played very well.
And then beat the brakes off of SMU. SMU stinks, but beat the brakes off SMU.
So this becomes a pretty pivotal early conference games, and I would argue for both of these teams, right? Like this is kind of feels like at this point in the season, these are the two teams more than likely battling for the two spot in the conference.
I agree, and I think with them too, something they didn't do as well in the first half against ECU, they're going to have to do well immediately. They're going to have to cover the 3-point line in a pretty big way. This is a team that shoots nearly 36% from three. Like they can do it. And, I mean, Taylor Hendricks is a bigger guy. He's one of their forwards, but he can put up a three ball. He's going to stretch those whether it's Chandler Lawson or DeAndre Williams out to the 3-point line. And I hope that doesn't necessarily lead, because he can get to the basket too. I hope that doesn't necessarily lead to foul trouble. But this is pivotal, because you get to the 36th net ranked team in the country at their place.
So quad one.
You need to go win that game and let everybody forget about that Tulane game. Now, here's the question I have been struggling with, and maybe you have a take on this. Winning it, great, like awesome. If you lose this game, what does it do? Like, it's not a bad loss. You can't look at it and say it's a bad loss, but it certainly hurts you, I think, long term.
I think it does, but I think it's a way bigger catapult than it is a step back.
Okay.
Versus, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
because it's on the road.
A loss. Yes, a win versus a loss. Like, a win is a massive catapult for this team, because I think you kind of get your confidence back.
Yeah.
Beating a top 40 team as far as the rankings go on the road. You don't have any kind of statement conference win yet, or any kind of stake your claim and say, like, we're here to at least get this 2 spot, and we want to jockey for the first spot too, whatever. You got to do that at some point before you get down the stretch in conference play. And this is an opportunity to do it in the 4th conference game, to go down to Orlando, beat a very good UCF team that, like we said, took Houston down to the wire, and say, okay, here we are. This could be the arrival game. This could be the confidence game. This could be when everything gets figured out. And on the flip side, if you lose this game and say let's just say it's a close game, because I don't necessarily see either team running away with it. These are two teams that generally play very close with one another. If you lose this game, then we're probably talking about it the same way we're talking about the Tulane game, right?
Yeah, but that's not good though.
I'm not saying it's good.
That's what I've struggled with. Is like, and I think you sort of answered it by saying it helps you more if you win than it hurts you if you lose.
Right.
I don't know if I necessarily see it that way, because I want to see what UCF does in conference. If they take some weird losses here and there and you lose this game, it could potentially look worse on you at the end of the year, because I don't necessarily see, and you guys can correct me if you think I'm wrong on this, I don't see UCF being climbing much higher in the net than 36 where they're at now, right?
No, I don't.
That's where I'm at. I think they are you're buying high right now.
Completely agree.
So that's why I have some struggles with this game and what it would mean long term with the resume. And I don't think there's any right answer. I just think it's a tough, weird spot in the schedule where you're catching them where 36 about as high as they're going to get in the net. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what they will be. Once we get into February, where will they be in the net? What losses will they have taken by then? If they take none, great. But I would imagine there's something in there in that conference schedule that may trip them up.
For this tournament resume, and I feel like for a lot of the season we've been talking about Memphis as a pretty good shot to go to the NCAA tournament. They've got to start stacking something.
They do.
They've got to start stacking something. Because the last thing you want to do is look back at the end of the year and you're looking on the outside in and you're 4th in the conference. Because this is more than likely, a 2 or 3 bid league?
2.5 bid league right now,
Yeah.
right? Like,
So the last thing you want to do is squander these opportunities for big wins
yes,
because you
you have one quad one.
You have
right
one.
now. That's it, and you just need to add them, no matter where they're coming
right.
from.
It doesn't matter at one point in the season. It doesn't matter how UCF finishes. Whatever, you can make all those arguments. And must win game is not the title for this game, but necessary win is a
Now, there's a lot of things that could happen by the time we get to the end of the season.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of teams that could move forward in the ACC and all these other big conferences. What's the record that gets the Tigers into the tournament by the time we get to the AAC tournament? Is it 13-5 in conference? Is that too much? 14-4, I think, certainly gets you in.
Yeah.
13-5, maybe
probably-
a little worried, but you're
probably close.
a bubble team, 9 seed,
Yeah,
8 seed.
I would say you're probably close at that point.
Yeah.
And it's very doable.
Yeah, no,
But
100%.
but you can't have bad losses stacked
I
up.
call these landmine games too. Like
Yeah.
when you're playing Temple, even if it's on the road, that's a landmine because they're a capable team,
right.
But
The ECU game was a landmine game.
beating them gives you true. Beating them gives you nothing. Losing
Takes everything.
takes everything from you.
Yeah.
And that's just what you run into in the AAC, which I think part of when you're talking to fans and people that watch the Tigers, part of you should be glad that UCF's put them themselves in this position. But I think this is the high for them this year.
Oh, I agree. I don't think they're going to be a top 20 team in the net or in any rankings by any
right.
means. I think they're sealing out right now. But could they keep the foot on the gas for the rest of the way? Absolutely, because they've been cohesive so far. And that's the scary part is they're the more cohesive of these two teams right now.
Yep.
And I think that Houston game had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
Because when you
they
go
believe in themselves.
exactly.
Right.
So when you go up against the big dog and you prove to yourself and the coaching staff proves to the team or whatever that you belong, then it's kind of a shoe-in from there. Like you kind of feel that from then on out, and Memphis just doesn't have that recently.
Yeah.
We thought that was the Auburn game. We thought that was the Alabama game, even in a loss, and then we get to conference play, and we see that it's went further south than it has north.
I bet there's, and this is just sort of me spitballing here when it comes to just sort of mindset. That out-of-conference schedule, you had 5 SEC games.
Yeah.
You're hyped up. You're ready to roll. And then you get into conference and you're like, oh, East Carolina,
UCF, Tulane, or USF,
South
yeah,
Florida. Like you start to get bored. I don't think they should be bored though. I don't
No.
think going against UCF should be a massive,
Yeah.
massive thought process. We got to go in
Yeah.
and kill this team.
And honestly, I feel like they get it now. I feel like they understand that they really almost screwed up losing to ECU
Right.
at home in the third conference game of the year.
The good news is, I think grand scheme of where they're sitting right now, the loss to Tulane stinks. Metrics aren't bad.
No.
59th in the net it's a tournament team. Generally speaking, and the net can be weird. 36th in Ken Palm.
Yeah.
Like the metrics still say
That
this
this is a
team
good
is
team.
comfortably
Yeah.
in the tournament. But again, you have to take care of business, and it's just tough because you have to bring your own intensity on the road in conference play, and you can't get tripped up. You
Yep.
just can't. You can't afford it.
Yep, and we shall see. I think it's back-to-back road games and then back at home next Thursday, so a week and a half. Is that right, Kenny?
Yeah, that's right.
Two
They've
road
got 7
games.
home games left and 8 road games.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yep.
So back-to-back on the road and then back at home.
It's
I think
Wichita
it's
State.
Was it January 19th? I think is when they're
Yeah,
back at
Thursday
home.
the 19th.
Thursday the 19th, yeah. So they got a minute till they're back at home. So the conversation should be interesting when they come back home.
Yeah.
But let's transition to a little bit of Memphis football. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with the transfer portal because I missed all that. I know you guys probably discussed that.
We did.
In a massive way. Caden Priestcorn, Javon Ivory,
Cameron Jackson.
And as of today, Caden Priestcorn's committed to Ole Miss. And here's what I have to say. We have talked about on
Holy
several
crap.
other
You see
occasions.
this national championship
What's
score?
a
31 to
Yeah, let's do an
7.
update real quick.
Yeah.
It is Monday night national championship game. Georgia's winning 31-7.
Yeah, not
with
surprising.
1 minute and 19 seconds left in the second quarter.
My
not
gosh.
surprising.
Stetson
Gabe.
Bennett for the
I
high.
hadn't looked over.
Back to your regular schedule
yeah,
programming.
Kenny's got it pulled up on the
see
computer
it.
over there, and it's kind of my view's kind of skewed. So
Yeah, I see it. I've been
looked.
peeking in. I have a great angle.
I know you've been peeking it, but that caught my first look at 31-7.
We've had several discussions on this pod about there wasn't the big outgoing of transfer portal guys, and there hasn't been the mass exodus. I sit here today and I still don't believe that's the case. I think that the exodus that we saw from the playmakers, and I'm not even going to sit here and act as if losing Caden Prescore and Javon Ivory and Cameron Jackson's not a big deal, and Cameron Wright is not a big deal. It's a massive deal. You're going to lose Gabe Rogers too, so you're going to lose number 2 receiver, number 3 receiver, number 4 receiver. That's huge. It's going to be so hard to replace those guys.
Right.
But I'm still sitting here saying this had nothing to do with what's going on in the program itself. It's not that they didn't believe in Ryan Silverfield. Caden Prescorn has a kid, right? Cameron Jackson got an offer from Florida he didn't want to refuse. This is why the NIL collectives, this is why trying to get involved and play the game is so huge, because you'll lose guys that have a lot of talent for no other reason besides that they're the highest. They go to the highest bidder. They go to the best place for them where there's more money. This is why Bluff City NIL is super important and why these things need to grow, because you can't keep losing out to bigger schools because of a lack of resources and a lack of money. And that's always been the case, but in the day of one-time transfer, freedom of movement, it's just tougher. It's way tougher to keep your guys on campus. And it's not that, it's not that they don't believe in what's being sold from the program. It's that they had better offers on the table that they had to go take advantage of for their own self. Right. And I completely understand that, and I'm happy that they're able to do that. But this is why it becomes so important to try to get the money in there. Try to get the resources for these guys.
Absolutely, because you don't want to be
tough.
You don't want to be in a scenario every year where you're losing your best player on both sides of the ball.
And that's a reality for Group of 5 guys now.
Yep.
You heard Jeff Traylor from UTSA talk about it.
Yep.
I have, Alabama. Well, he didn't name names, but you got Alabama and Georgia and all these guys reaching out to your starting running back who ran for 1,500 yards last year. He's going.
Yeah.
I have news for you. He's gone.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing, and that's what it used to be in the past. If you had transfer portal guys, it's that you were screwing up behind the scenes and they hated you. That wasn't the case with any of the guys that hopped in the portal. It's just a case of, hey, I have better opportunity.
Yep, and that's the world we live in now. But on the flip side of that, Memphis has most certainly not sat on their hands and let these players leaving deter what they're doing in the transfer portal, because they have. Ryan Silverfield and the staff have constantly been grabbing players out of the portal, and definitely can't knock that. The same day they lose Cameron Jackson, they go out and get a Darius Jones from Texas A&M. Not quite as big as Cameron Jackson, because you don't find many 6'6", 340 guys just walking around. But 6'4", 300 defensive tackle.
Helpful to add with Derek Hunter and all these guys that they're bringing in.
With an SEC pedigree. They go out and get Jalen Joyner.
Or Johnson. Jalen Johnson?
Joyner, I believe. Kenny, can you...
From Ohio State?
No.
Jalen Joyner, okay.
Jalen was...
I'm ahead of
you. FAU,
okay. Jalen Joyner.
Yeah, which was a good one. Had a productive career, wasn't as productive this year due to injury, but I think he could be a good one for him at defensive end. Adds another necessary size. I think he's like 6'2", 265.
Huge.
Yeah, big...
Edge rusher, and you know what? And that's a good thing, because it lends itself to a 4-down front more consistently.
Absolutely, and
because they didn't have the horses this year to run that.
Didn't have the size, or the rotation.
And they still ran it. They still ran the 4-down front consistently, but they didn't have enough depth.
The juice wasn't there later in games, and I think that obviously has been realized, and they are very quickly attacking that, because they need the guys and need the bodies up front to do so.
And we talked about it. You said what, 6'4", 6. What'd you say his measurables were?
Jalen Joyner.
6'2",
265.
6'2", 265 is a 5 technique. They're outside of the tackle as a DN. Like, they're finally, and they have done this in the past, but we talked about identity. Remember that? I think it was like episode 4.
Yeah.
We talked about identity and seeing what you wanted in the recruiting trail and going and getting guys that fit a role. That's the type of guy that fits a role. He's a 5 tech. Derek Hunter's a 3 technique, right? A Darius Jones could be a nose or a 3 technique as well. Right. They're finding guys that finally fit that 4-man front that they want to run consistently.
Yeah, this defensive line is going to look nothing like it did last year.
Yeah.
Because really the only thing you had in terms of size on the defensive line last year, and I'm not talking about outside linebackers,
just Cam.
Rush ends, is Cam. As far as...
and Cormonte to a certain extent.
Right. But as far as especially your 1 and 3 tech, let's focus on that. We know we've talked about
big hosses that can eat up 2 gaps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, 3 technique not necessarily taking up 2 gaps, but guys that can eat up run blocks and
Eat
go
up
make
space.
plays in the run game.
Clog it up so linebackers can come in and clean it up. I mean, that's what one tech's primarily, their primary job is. But looking at what they're doing on the defensive line, I love it because you're freeing up guys like Cormonte and Jalen Allen when you get a guy like Jalen Joyner, who, golly, we're going to have a lot of Jalen's on this defense next year.
We haven't even got to the other Jalen that got out of the transfer portal.
But they're building size up front, which is something that Memphis has lacked since fill in the blank. We talked about this a couple weeks ago.
Maybe that 3-man front they ran with Terry Redden and Martin Affetti in 2014, maybe?
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
That's a long time ago. Ricky Hunter.
Yeah, so they're getting size up there. They're getting bodies up there so they can rotate and stay fresh. We know how important that is in a college game today. With how quick these offenses go, you have to have, 7 to 8 up front?
You look at Georgia, they run in waves.
Right.
4-man waves. 4-man,
yeah.
And they just switch.
Right. You got to have
5 plays or whatever.
Got to have 7 to 8 guys. Got to have 7 to 8 guys that can play and can play at their best. And so they're building up to that. It's a great start. And then, as we've kind of touched on a little bit here with all the Jalen Johnson, former Ohio State safety. I love that get for them because you got a guy that, Matt Barnes obviously knows well from Ohio State, tore his ACL before his freshman year, so redshirted, and then
hadn't played.
What happens at Ohio State? If you sit a year, you're going to get recruited over.
And if you have an ACL injury, you better work like the Dickens to try to get back and win a job.
Right.
It's tough to win a job there. It's true.
And when you bring in, top 10 safeties, usually multiple top 10 safeties every year, it's easy to get recruited over.
Yep.
And Jalen Johnson wasn't a top 10 safety. He was
3-star.
higher ranked 3-star. So very good, solid player. And once again, this is not one of those guys that was coming out of high school in 2016 and has never played and is, finally transferring. No, this is a guy that's been in college for 2 years, missed a full year, redshirted with the ACL, and then this year was the only year he was active in college. So,
and it's a relationship thing, man.
Oh, absolutely.
That's the thing with Matt Barnes. Matt Barnes came over here, and he brought Cormonte Hamilton immediately. And he's a guy who's already made somewhat of a difference. You want to see more production going into next year, but he'll be more used to the system and more comfortable in his position by next year, and he'll probably have more production. Jalen Johnson is a guy that Matt Barnes recruited. He was his position coach. I like the relationship building in recruiting. And if you have a guy that you trust, that you know, they're likely to make more plays on Saturday for you. And I feel like that's what Matt Barnes has done. And he's taken 2 guys from Ohio State, right? So
absolutely.
He's familiar with these guys, and I like to see that part of it. Now we'll see. There's no promises with Jalen Johnson. I haven't really seen him play, and you don't know how that ACL recovered when it did recover. But certainly he's going to be a guy who's hungry and ready to play ball.
Yeah, he's going to be in the mix regardless because as we've talked about, safety is going to be one of the biggest needs with Quindell Johnson leaving. Like they have to have a guy step up back there.
Yep.
Doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't matter if it's Jalen Johnson. Doesn't matter if it's a walk-on. It doesn't matter who it is. They have to have dudes step up at the safety spot. And so actively addressing that, bringing in a guy with a ton of talent and Jalen Johnson to come in and at bare minimum compete from day one is absolutely massive.
Yes, and just filling those voids as they come at you, and there's still more that they need to get done.
Yeah,
but this day and age of college football, they can get it done.
Mm-hmm. And I think if they added no more transfers from here until next season, I think they've done a great job.
Yeah,
I think they're doing a great job addressing the offensive line, the defensive line.
And trying to find players in the secondary.
And then finding guys to fill cracks, which we've talked about ad nauseum, safety and running back, defensive backs and running backs. Some guys that can mix in and fill in and at bare minimum beat competition and push guys around them.
What you have to try to do is just get more out of the transfer portal than you lose. And I think you're already starting at a disadvantage with the guys you lost.
Right.
But again, there's guys that step up, and we'll see by the time we roll around to next year what that looks like, who steps into Caden Prescorn's position. If Derek Hunter can be a productive guy along the defensive line like sometimes Cam Jackson was, right? Javon Ivory, you're going to have to find another wide receiver. Who's that going to be? But I think given the circumstances, they've done all they could and done a pretty good job
At addressing
the transfer portal in itself.
Right.
It's just tough when you,
Yeah,
when you
it's
lose
difficult.
all those guys off top.
I mean, all you can control is what you can control. And honestly, it's hard for them to control outgoing transfers if it is productive guys.
Yeah.
If it's guys that, are going to smaller schools, then
like I view it, I don't know how much they could have done to keep those three guys from going.
I don't think there's anything.
There's nothing that they really could have.
No.
I mean, it comes down to funding, NIL, and a bidding war, and that's sort of how it goes.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means that you have to do everything you can in the future to keep up.
So speaking of guys outgoing and ingoing, we also had some coaching changes over the last week or so. It was announced that Charles Bankins, special teams coordinator, wide receivers coach David Glidden, and offensive line coach Jim Bridge would all be gone. That Memphis parted ways with all three of those guys. And those are the three guys that we really talked about and said if there's anybody that this staff, needs to shed, it's those three guys. And I know you were trying to be very subtle about it.
Yeah, I was being subtle.
You were not a big fan of Jim Bridge.
It just comes down to old school football and how it's taught, and maybe if you have a brainchild between two guys that don't necessarily fully agree on how guys should run an offensive line room, it's just not going to be a good offensive line. And you saw the results, right? With all three of those guys, I think you saw the results, and you need to make a move if you're Ryan Silver. You can't sit on your hands, right? If you have a position of need that has sort of escaped you, wide receivers aren't getting separation, the O-line isn't paving the way for the run game or keeping the running back or keeping the quarterback upright. If you have special teams where you had a kicker issue 2 years ago, you fix that, now the return game's all messed up. At some point you have to make a decision, is the leadership good enough? And Ryan saw and addressed those and said we need better leadership in these positions. And I think the guys that they went and got, I'm kind of happy with for the most part. Obviously, the Will Friend issue was a weird deal, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Very odd.
You never know. People are, of course, people.
Maybe he said he got the job,
but people on Twitter, of course, are going to be like, "Oh, what the heck happened?" But you never know what happened behind the scenes.
He ended up at State,
right? But I'm just saying,
stay in the SEC.
Who knows how that situation went behind the scenes? We're not here to try to come up with a theory about how it went, but at the end of the day, it wasn't Will Friend. Yeah. You and I feel the same about this. It on the recruiting front, I think getting Will Friend would have been huge.
Yes.
I mean, when he was at Tennessee a couple years ago, landed two of the best tackles in the country in Darnell Wright and Wanya Morris, both 5 stars. But his development of offensive line, both at Tennessee and Auburn, has been suspect at best. Because you look, wait 1 second, you look at Darnell Wright. I wasn't trying to be demonstrative there at all, but you look at a guy like Darnell Wright, was I believe the number 1 or number 2 tackle in the country, coming out of Huntington Beach, Virginia. He did nothing under Will Friend. Nothing. He is more than likely going to be a first-round pick now.
I know. Yep.
He had all the tools the entire time, but never developed under Will Friend. Same thing with Wanya Morris. I don't know what he's doing in Oklahoma, but he never developed, at Tennessee under Will Friend. So, and Auburn's offensive line was a mess this year.
Now, Georgia, I think he did a fine job at Georgia when he was at Georgia for that. It was sort of an extended period of time, somewhere 2011, somewhere.
Right.
I forget exactly when he ended at Georgia. He did an okay job, but look at them since then and how they recruit and what they've done in development.
Right.
It's crazy. You look at Tennessee, you've already brought that up. I mean, after he left, all those guys started getting better.
Guys.
That
Jerome
offensive
Carvin,
line was
Darnell Wright,
substantially
all those guys.
better. They're going to be draft picks now. And then at Auburn, were you impressed by they had Tank Bigsby in that backfield last year, and what did they have to say for it?
He couldn't find any running room.
There was nothing there.
No.
So I liked it from a name standpoint.
Absolutely.
It was like, okay, this is as splashy as an O-line coach hire as you could have made.
Absolutely.
But in the end of the day, was he developing? And I sort of saw, because they ended up with Jeff Myers from Iowa State. I saw the opposite response to Jeff Myers.
Right.
Of like, oh, well, he doesn't have as much experience. He's not really that type of coach. Iowa State stunk last year in the run game. I don't know about you, but when have you known Iowa State football outside of the last 5 years?
Never.
When they're winning bowl games under Matt Campbell, Breece Hall, David Montgomery,
Right.
multiple offensive linemen that were all Big 12 guys. And I know that's a little shameless for me to say that.
Yeah.
But this is the best their offense has looked, and Jeff Myers was the O-line coach for 5 years. So
With Jeff Myers as the offensive line coach, they finished with the first, third, and fourth offenses. Three top five
and then
offensive
they had to
in school
rebuild
history.
last year. I
right.
mean, Hayden Deckers is playing quarterback, and
Right.
you'd lost Breece
Brock,
Hall.
Brock
and-
Purdy and Breece Hall.
Yeah, like it's tough to rebuild. You can't just look at 1 year after all of their good guys, after all of their production left, and say, "Oh, well, he stinks as an O-line coach." Look at the build up to it.
Right, and I think honestly, I think the biggest reason people have been kind of weird about it is because you have seen, and I haven't looked into this enough, so I don't know, but I've just seen kind of people tweeting about it and talking about like he was kind of let go by Matt Campbell. So once again,
Okay.
I didn't like dig deep into
Right.
this.
I mean,
I just saw
that
the
whole
talk about
coaching
it on
staff.
Twitter.
They were 5-7 this year.
Right, he's cleaning house.
Yeah, it's just he's got to go protect himself.
But I will say I like the Jeff Myers hire more than I would like the Will Friend hire. That's my honest opinion.
Interesting. I don't know if I'm willing to take that step, but I like the hire, and I also like between him and Larry Smith, who got hired as a wide receiver coach. I like young, hungry coaches, and also the thing you run into with guys like Will Friend, and I'm not saying if he would have got hired by Memphis, he would have stunk. That's not what I'm saying. But sometimes when you have guys that have been around Auburn, that have been around Georgia, that have been around Tennessee, by the time they get around and they've been let go again by that third SEC school, is the hunger still there by the time they get to a place like Memphis?
Right.
That's the question you have to ask yourself. I like the young up-and-coming guys who still have the hunger, that are, not even 10 years into coaching, right? They still – I think both these guys have good enough resumes,
Yeah.
especially. But guys that are young can relate to their players. That helps in recruiting. That helps on the field. So
Yeah, and especially with a guy like Jeff Myers, and this is we're like fully speculating at this point because we don't know what Will Friend would have done. We don't know what Jeff Myers is going to do, whatever. But in my mind, this is kind of my thoughts and opinion on it. A guy like Jeff Myers who had so much success at Iowa State, and if what people were saying is true and he was let go by Matt Campbell, don't you think he's going to be pretty fired up?
that's the point.
Don't you think he's going to be pretty fired up
adds to it.
and want to go out there and show that, like, okay, whatever. Like, maybe
still
had a
coach at
bad
this
year.
level,
Yeah, I can
right?
still do this.
Yeah. Again, when it comes to young coaches, and in that situation, I think that's another sort of element to this. I like the hunger. I
do
like
too.
that. So, and then third hire, special teams coordinator,
Chris White from Buffalo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot, like compared to the other two guys, like what, 4 times more experience?
Yeah.
Been with the Lions, who else in the NFL? The Vikings.
The Vikings, yeah.
UConn, Syracuse, Iowa when last time they were in the Rose Bowl. I mean, he's been around the block.
Yeah.
He's coached special teams for a long time.
Right. And this seems like a guy that Silverfield trusts.
Yeah.
And
I would say so.
I think that's, back to your earlier point, that's necessary. You don't want to have too many cooks in the kitchen with too many different ideas on how things should be done.
And why not for special teams, for like a coordinator position, get it? Special teams guys stick around a long time if they're
Right.
good.
Experience is a necessity.
If they're bad, they're out pretty quickly.
Right. Experience is almost a necessity as a special teams.
That's sort of what I'm getting at. And for him to just he knows how to take over that room and run that room. And it's it's almost a relief.
Yeah.
Take an extra bag
Yeah, just
off
be like,
of
you got this.
off of Ryan's back. That's
absolutely.
your room. You handle that. He tried to do that with Bankins, but there was too many deficiencies.
Yeah, and I don't think this is a Limbo or a Svoboda hire because those are two of the best special teams coaches.
And I think James Shebest was a good one.
Right.
Joe Lorig before after him.
But I think this is
a good run.
Very solid hire in Chris White. I think he has the ability to come shore up the special teams because Memphis has been known for special teams over the last several years, and they haven't been great the last 2 seasons.
Yep.
And Buffalo's special teams last year, I believe, ranked a little bit higher than Memphis's. So, I mean, it's a wait-and-see kind of thing, but it feels like a very comfortable hire in a good way for Silverfield. And I think Memphis has the potential now with him at the helm of the special teams to get back to that. But like I said, I mean, Memphis got so spoiled with Pete Limbo
Yep.
that, I mean, he's the best special teams coach in the country.
Yep.
I don't even think there's an argument to that. Like, I think he had the number one special teams at Memphis.
He was a head coach at Ball State off being a special teams coordinator.
Right.
Right. Like he's
Awesome special teams at Memphis, and he is killing it at South Carolina
Yeah.
right now. They finished number one in pretty much almost every special team metric because Pete Limbo is that dude.
and again, James Shebas, Joe Lorig after that. Like there was a good run there.
Right.
Bankin sort of made the run
Was the outlier.
slow down a little bit, but hopefully Chris White can get it going. But they do need to find a kicker, right?
Yeah.
Gotta find
Yeah.
a kicker.
No, it's a necessity. They gotta add some pieces there and see what they got there. But I'm a big fan of the hires right now. Obviously that can always change, but on paper, I really like the 3 hires.
I think all of them make sense, and I know people are still going to stick to that what happened with Will Friend narrative, but in the end of the day, I like Jeff Myers and what he brings to the table, and I think all these guys make sense in the time being for Ryan Silverfield in this team.
Absolutely agree. Kenny, is there anything we're missing, or
I don't think so.
you don't have anything else?
No, man, I think I've covered everything. I mean, there's a lot going on both sides, in basketball and football.
Yeah, it's weird this time of year to have anything going on with football, but like the last 3 or 4 years, the
No,
transfer
we did
portal-
miss.
Do it.
No, we did miss.
What did we miss?
Cowboys going to win a game in the
Oh
playoffs.
my god! Why does it have to go
Well, listen, before you got here, he already told me we're going to have to record on Tuesday night instead of Monday night because the Cowboys are playing on Monday night.
Oh, okay, all right, I can deal with that.
Come on.
I mean, maybe y'all.
Listen, I've been driving the bus for the Cowboys. What the hell was that? And don't even say, "Oh, they didn't care." They had the starters out there.
I'm not saying anything.
Okay.
It was terrible.
But do they win? Are they going to beat
I don't
TB?
I don't think so.
TB on the road.
Tampa Bay's been rolling towards the back half of the year. Not rolling, but they had the one big spike
right.
game
All right.
2 weeks ago, and they seem much more cohesive over the last couple weeks, which is scary. So I believe Dallas's season is going to end exactly how it began, on a warm night in Tampa Bay at Raymond James Stadium.
Damn.
That was beautiful, man.
Spoken like a true Cowboy fan. I'll tell you
Well,
what. True.
yeah.
As true as it gets.
Christian
we're
is
gonna lose.
notorious for underselling the Cowboys because he doesn't want to get his hopes up.
No,
which
I don't.
makes sense.
There's no point.
Exactly. That's
There's
the
no
point I'm
point
making.
in
That
getting
is
my
a
hopes up.
seasoned Cowboys
He is
fan
a
right
seasoned. He is a seasoned Cowboy
there.
fan.
He's been around the block a couple
I
times.
do want to update. It's halftime.
How does that say? Why does that say 24/7? Oh, 38.
It's 38-7.
Oh, dang.
Max Duggan threw another interception.
Well, we picked the best national championship. This is like the first national championship I've never watched. We picked the one not to watch. We picked-
Well, hadn't there been like a 15-point differential in all the college football playoff national championships? Like it's never been that close.
Bama and Clemson?
Well, Bama and Clemson was, but I'm saying like generally speaking, outside of that, has there been like a super close?
Georgia and Bama?
Well,
that
he
wasn't-
just,
was
he
that-
just
yeah,
shot
that
your
was national
argument in
championship.
the foot.
Tua?
Was that the national? That
Tua?
was the natty.
That was the natty.
Okay, but I'm saying like, isn't there
I'm
there
sure
is a
there's-
stat out there? It's a 15-point differential. In
Yeah, there's
championship
been
games
more
in the college
blowouts than
football
close
playoff.
games. What was last year? Who did Georgia beat? Why am I blanking?
What do you mean?
Who was the national championship last year?
But at Bama. Am I losing my mind?
Man, we are the
What is going
top-notch college
You're
football
making me.
analysts.
You're literally making me question things.
I think it was Bama, but I don't know. I don't remember, and I don't know.
Kenny,
how.
help, man. We're throwing you. Need a lifeline.
I'm sitting
I'm
here
trying. I'm over here typing.
I'm sitting here talking about Bama.
I need a
Clemson from
lifeline.
years ago, and Bama Georgia
What's
from years
going
ago.
on?
I think it was Georgia. Bama.
Yeah, because they won the rematch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 33-18.
Yeah,
Georgia
they won the
versus
rematch.
Bama.
I'm good. You made me question everything.
Yeah. The championship game hasn't been close.
Well, a lot of the matchups,
recently.
too.
I mean,
But no.
LSU beat the brakes off of Clemson a couple years ago.
Say so. Beat the dog. I thought you were about to
No.
go in right there. Okay.
No.
All right.
Hey, some big news dropped today. D'Angelo Williams is nominated
Oh.
for College Football Hall
Isn't he
of
going
Fame.
in?
Is he nominated? Is he going in?
I think he's going in. He's been nominated. He's
Yeah,
been nominated.
I think he was in.
I'm pretty sure D'Angelo is in.
Look at us being great college football analysts.
What do you think about that? I mean, that's crazy.
That's great stuff. But here's what I'll say too. if you talk about the University of Memphis and football, he's the easy best player, right?
He's the GOAT
in history. Like, he's the GOAT of Memphis football, right? I mean, maybe a lot of people, older folks, may have different answers, but I mean, D'Angelo Williams is that guy.
Man, I saw D'Angelo Williams his senior year of high school. I went to college in Arkansas.
This is one of Kenny's favorite stories ever.
And, it's just, how often do you get to see just supremely elite players before everybody knows that they're supremely elite,
rare.
right? And so, I went to school in Arkansas, and obviously he played at Wynn High School, was in the state championship game his senior year, and they were playing their final game in, what's the stadium in Little Rock?
War
Memorial Stadium. So a couple of buddies and we were like, I think he had committed to Memphis, or I think he'd already committed, so we knew he was coming to Memphis. And so I was like,
Kenny hooped at Ouachita Baptist.
Yep.
And so I was like, we got to get these guys. I want to get some guys together. Let's go watch him play. And we saw two games. We saw the semifinal game and then the championship game. And I think he ran in that state playoff run, ran for 2,000 yards in that state playoff run. It got to the point in the state championship game.
So he accounted for like every yard they had.
Well, we started making bets on how many plays would it take for D'Angelo to get to the end zone. The score ended up being something like 77 to like 70. It was like the two teams that were playing, one of them was a pass-heavy team. They threw the ball. They had one guy who I think ended up playing for some low-level Division I team receiver who had like 400 yards receiving in that game. And D'Angelo, I think, ran for like 330 yards in the championship game.
And at Memphis, he was so ridiculous.
He's so good.
And I always thought in the NFL he was very, very slept on for years.
Very
and you saw that at the end, too. I mean, he was great with the Panthers, but even at the end there with the Steelers, he was awesome.
But with the Panthers,
he could catch the ball out of the backfield.
Smash and dash, him and Jonathan Stewart.
Super, but no question. But he was super versatile as a running back.
Yeah. I think he was a little underrated in the NFL.
I really do, too.
Because he was a monster. I think he had some injury problems where he would miss like 4 or 5 games a year.
Yeah.
I think that kind of deflated
sort of
his
running back.
Right.
That's the position.
But he's a smaller built back anyway.
But he made it a long time, man.
Oh, yeah. He had plenty of
long
longevity, and had a lot of good years. So,
congrats, D'Angelo.
Shouts to D'Angelo Williams. That feels kind of like it, though. I don't think there's been anything else.
I think that's it.
Kenny,
we're good.
How many times are you gonna ask Kenny?
We're good.
Kenny's.
I think we got it.
Kenny's the producer. He's supposed to have this stuff queued up. Like,
I'm ready.
Guys,
Hey, I'm cued.
forgot this.
I'm cued.
Forgot that.
Yeah, man. No, good job, guys.
So
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
bro.
you, Kenny.
Welcome back to the studio, guys.
Yes,
it's good to have you
it's
back.
so nice to be back, dude. I hated that you didn't have to do any Zooms. I had to do 2 Zoom podcasts.
Well, at least you have the good setup. My Zoom setup is a webcam. It looks terrible.
Yeah, it's not great, but well, you see, here's my problem, and we're gonna get a little deeper here. Here's my problem with the Zoom stuff, and this is gonna come off pretty egotistical, but I look super goofy on the Zoom camera.
I have no comment on that, Kenny. Do you?
Hold on.
Do you know what
I don't
I'm
know
saying?
if I have a comment.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. That's crazy.
So here's the thing. So, Gabe, I would think you would know this, but I guess you don't do much Zoom stuff. When my head is flipped, my hair is the wrong way.
Oh, man.
It doesn't show my fade enough. I got this nice.
No, it's not the fade.
I got this crisp bald
It's
fade,
not
and
the
it doesn't even
fade.
show
It's
the
not
right
the
way.
fade. It's like
doesn't highlight it.
It's like when I see myself on Zoom, I'm like, that don't even look like me. I look goofy. I think that every time, so I hate Zoom. I remember the first time I ever saw it like that. I was on Rise and Grind with Jessica Benson, and they Skyped me in, and I'm sitting there looking, and I'm like,
I look terrible.
I'm like, no way they're gonna put me out like
I
this.
like the studio setup too because we get to show off the foot action.
Yeah.
That's always nice.
What are you rocking?
Just a couple. Just some dunks.
That's
right,
it.
though.
You don't even know what they're called, or anything?
I don't know what they're called. They're like dude. This is gonna sound funny, but they're like the recycled pair. Like
So am I.
they have like they're fully made out of recycled material. I don't know what they're called though.
Yeah. I got the Air Max.
Air Maxes.
The 90s.
Good look.
Terrascapes.
Shout out. Air Max, I always go back between 95s and is it 97s? Probably my favorite shoe.
I like the 90s. These are way, just pro tip, these are way more comfortable than
Oh,
the
100%.
97s.
Yeah, no, it's like walking on.
The 97s,
97s are uncomfortable, but they look great.
They look awesome, but they're so uncomfortable.
They are. 95s are pretty comfortable too.
I don't have
they got
95s.
They got a nice little sole on them.
Yeah, I don't have 95s. This is my first pair of 90s, and I'm a big
The
fan.
one with the air pocket, right? Well, there's air pocket. There's the long air pocket on the 97s. Like it's the long one at the bottom.
Mine doesn't have. Oh yeah, it does. You're right.
The
You're
real
right. Like
long
right
and skinny one.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Now the 270s, that's the most comfortable Air Max.
Okay.
I'm notorious for rocking those.
Those are fresh too.
Yeah, I bought back to back same pair because those shoes are so comfortable. But anyway, we've gotten sidetracked once again. That's kind of our shtick. But but anyway, glad to be back in studio. We'll be back next week and for the foreseeable future. Thank the Lord. We don't have to worry about Zoom anymore. I'm not going out of town anytime soon. Don't believe Gabe's going out of town anytime soon.
I'm here.
Don't think Kenny is either. So we're locked in for the foreseeable future in studio. I'm excited about it. So one thing before we get out of here, we did have a website change. The name of the website has changed. For the media company is now bluffcitymedia.co. That's on all of our socials, and we've kind of been putting it out everywhere. So the update is known. And for the NIL collective for Bluff City NIL is now bluffcitynil.com. So a little bit of housekeeping stuff there. Separated the two websites so it is a little bit more cohesive. Isn't that a paradox? Separating them to make them more cohesive.
That's well done.
Yeah, thank you. So just wanted to let you guys know that. Go check out both. On the media site, obviously, everything's on there. All the podcasts, all the videos. Kenny continues to do a killer job on all the videos. Trey and TJ on Tigers Untapped. I know they have quite a large fan base, as they should, because they're hilarious and have a great show. So check out their show. And fingers crossed, we got some more shows coming soon. So stay locked in for that. And, man, I think that's it. I think we can get out of here on that note. And we'll see you guys back here next week.
Thank you for listening to On the Bluff. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and a comment wherever you download your podcasts. Head over to www.bluffcitynil.com, where you will find comprehensive coverage of Tiger athletics and how you can become a contributor. We'll see you back here next week.